This episode is sponsored by Postman. Postman is the world's leading API collaboration platform, and they just launched Postman AI Agent Builder, the quickest way to build AI agents. Start building at postman.com/podcast/cloudcast.
Cloudcast Media presents from the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Hey everyone. So as I mentioned on last week's show, we are back to doing intros, but a little peek behind the curtain, we tend to record a few shows ahead of time so that we have kind of a good pipeline, especially when Brian and I are traveling or things kind of come up or there's just a lot going on, which has certainly been the case here recently. Because of that, you'll notice our standard intro after the break. Sorry for any confusion about that, but we've got a great topic this week. Our topic this week is Agentic AI and AI assistance. It's a topic I've been wanting to dig into for a while now, as I see the terms used interchangeably, but there are differences, and we explore that. And we also talk about ROI and the ROI in this space, especially versus GenAI, and certainly common paths to adoption as well. And we're going to do all of that right after this quick break. Is Microsoft Unified Support busting your IT budget? You're not alone. US Cloud is the global leader in third-party Microsoft enterprise support. And we're helping enterprises slash support costs by 30 to 50% versus Microsoft Unified, all while getting faster response times from domestic engineers. No offshoring, no long waits, just expert support you can count on 24/7 by 365. Trusted by 50 of the Fortune 500 and offering senior level engineers with an average of 14 years experience with Microsoft technologies, US Cloud is the smarter alternative for premium Microsoft support without the premium price. Ready to make the switch? Book a call at uscloud.com to get started. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome back to the Cloudcast. We're coming to you live from our massive Cloudcast studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina. And for this week, it's actually really been interesting as we've seen kind of the rise of GenAI on the show and the interest in all of those. And then everything's kind of moving on from GenAI to the current hotspot is Agentic AI and assistance for AI in particular. And we're going to talk about that a little bit today. And in order to do that, we've asked Dan Lee, CEO of Nooks.ai. First of all, Dan, welcome to the show, and give everyone a quick introduction, please.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Aaron. I'm co-founder and CEO of Nooks. Nooks is an AI sales assistant platform powering sales pipeline for the fast-growing companies today, like Fivetran, 1Password, and Mimecast. We automate the busy work in selling so that reps can focus on the human parts of the job. We're a Series B company based in San Francisco, around 120 people. We've raised around $70 million in venture funding, and we've been growing quickly. And then for some quick background on myself, I grew up in New Jersey. Before starting Nooks, I went to Stanford, studied AI and computer science, and started Nooks with some of my closest friends from Stanford in 2020.
Fantastic. And first of all, let's kind of do some definitions, if you will, because as I mentioned, everything kind of became interesting, if you will, in the GenAI area and LLMs and transformer technology. And then it quickly pivoted to AI agents and this world of AI assistants. And let's start out there, because there's many kind of terms that a lot of folks are using very interchangeably, but at the same time, I feel like there's a subtle difference and some subtle definitions that we need to get out of the way. And so I'll just kind of ask it, is an AI agent equal to an AI assistant? And what's the difference?
Yeah, good question. I do think it is really a matter of definitions. Lots of products that don't automate things fully end to end call themselves an agent. And some products that do automate things end to end still call themselves as an assistant. I think when people are referring to agents today, they're talking about autonomous AI, where it's able to complete a workflow end to end, whereas an assistant is often helping a human accomplish a task. I do think that it is very much a matter of terminology and jargon, though, because a lot of these use cases, no matter how you call it, end up looking pretty similar. I think in our space, we're obviously in the AI sales space. There is actually some important nuance. I think if you think about a lot of other applications of AI, for example, self-driving cars, or if you think about AI for customer support, in these use cases, the consumer of the AI is a passenger trying to go somewhere, or a customer trying to answer a question. And the consumer of the AI is seeking the AI's output, and it's a simple input-output function. Answer the question the right way, or go from point A to point B. I think in sales, it's actually pretty different, where buyers are the consumer of the AI, and they're normally not looking to buy something. So as a result, you're actually held to a very different bar. And if a buyer is flooded with AI messages, that stops working. And the thing that stands out is being human. So I guess at Nooks, we do intentionally call ourselves an AI assistant rather than an agent. Even if you're looking for agents, it would be a lot of the same stuff that that Nooks supports. But the important nuance is that we're empowering sales reps to focus on the art of selling, while our AI assistant helps take care of the busy work.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I love that. Thank you. And also too, I just want to kind of take it even maybe one step further here of because I feel like when GenAI really hit the scene and brought AI kind of into the mainstream where folks were talking about it, because I mean, it's not like AI is new per se, but now there's all of a sudden these AI trends, and there's all these AI trends that the industry is interested in. And as I mentioned, this latest wave is Agentic AI. And one of the reasons I think everyone has moved on to Agentic AI as quickly as they have is because GenAI, I think there was two pieces of it that was really important. And most folks just see like the equivalent of a chatbot, basically, right? Of like, I'm going to type something in natural language, and it's going to gen a bunch of text and figure out the tokens and spit it back out at me and give me an answer. And that's great. But I'll use the term, the ROI on chatbots for most customers, it just isn't there most of the time, right? And so what happens here is, while that natural language interaction and processing, if you ask a lot of folks that, hey, I want to be able to just enter stuff in, I just want to type it in any old way. But is this kind of what has started to move all of this forward? Is this concept of like, hey, this Gen AI and the ROI and the chatbots, like there just wasn't enough there. And quite frankly, it just didn't move the needle enough. And this is where assistance came into play, because now we're starting to get to like, hey, now I have something that's doing something. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think there is a really important question of value creation. I think in our case, for example, in the sales use case, it's easy to ask ChatGPT to write you an email, right? To help write your sales email. But in order to write a good email, it needs to know who it's to, why, what does a good email actually look like to this type of persona? What's all the context that you've had, from previous conversations with this person, from calls, et cetera. And while, LLMs today are smart enough to do these things, they need to actually be built as a product, as an end user application, and build all the workflows around it. While it's easy to get, ask ChatGPT to write an email, it's actually right now has this human bottleneck to actually go feed it all that information. And I think as a result, a lot of AI tools AI agents end up becoming vaporware, because, you have some AI application that has the intelligence, but is not actually built as a product in exactly the right way to deliver the results. I think with Nooks in particular, operating in the sales tech space, another big problem that you encounter is a fragmented tech stack. In sales, often you use one tool for calling, one tool for email, a tool for data, a tool for coaching, a tool for research. And a fragmented stack requires human glue to be the shared context across it. Which makes it really hard for an agent or an AI product to operate autonomously, because while you can when workflows are manual, when writing an email is manual, it's okay for to require a human to remember what happened in the call and what's the context. But if writing that email is can actually be automated with AI, then that human bottleneck in between to remember the context. It's a bottleneck in terms of productivity, in terms of feedback loops, and in terms of data. So, particularly in sales and in a lot of other, of these applications, when you have a fragmented stack, it actually requires kind of bringing these fragmented pieces together via workflows, via consolidation, in order to build actually useful AI.
Yeah, I love that, and yeah, that whole concept of a fragmented tech stack with human glue is so applicable across our industry, whether it's sales, whether it's marketing, whether it's just, SRE day to day and build pipelines. Like it is amazing to me, as things kind of loose coupling and microservices and all these other things that developed prior to AI, as all of this moves forward, it's amazing to me that this hasn't happened faster, actually. And so let me ask you this, because this is really, I feel like there's always been this on the podcast. We always talk about, folks, it's always like post Gen AI or pre Gen AI in the aging of the companies, because I feel like it made a pretty significant difference. And let's dive into that just a little bit, because you really, the company's been around for a number of years, and you really started the organization before the big breakout of Gen AI and LLMs and transformers. And did this change your approach and your path? And did you have to start over with certain technologies? Or tell everyone a little bit behind the scenes of what it was like to, you're going in one direction and build something, and then this big thing kind of disrupts the market, and how did you adjust to it?
Yeah, I think I'll first share a TLDR and then kind of summary. I think the TLDR is approach problems from first principles. We started before ChatGPT came out, but we had this background in AI. And kind of understood what are some of the capabilities that, current capabilities, as well as what are the capabilities we expect kind of in the near future and that are emerging. For context, before working on Nooks, my background was mostly in AI, applied AI, some research, worked at companies like Scale AI, Cerebra Systems, and my co-founders worked at, autonomous vehicles, several other, AI use cases. And we started Nooks in 2020, with two problems in mind, both related to what we're building now, but a little bit more abstract. One problem was like the remote work problem, because as COVID, everyone was working virtually. And the second problem was, hey, if you get that working, if you get a virtual office working where everyone's collaborating digitally, you have a lot of data on how people work. And can you start automating manual work? Can you automate feedback loops to help people get better at their jobs? And pretty early on, we found that sales was actually the perfect use case for both of these, where you need tight feedback loops because you have dozens of reps, sales reps on a team selling the same product, answering the same questions, hopefully the same way. And you want the feedback loops to understand what works and what doesn't work, and kind of replicate the things that work across the team. So we spent a lot of time, understanding this sales use case, spending time with sales reps, trying to sell Nooks ourselves, cold calling people and saying, hey, please try our product. And what we realized was, hey, this job is about to change, right? While we can help a lot with collaboration in this work from home environment, actually, reps are, you have 3 million inside sales reps in the US, and they're still spending the majority of their time on things that AI can do. Writing emails, making calls, doing research. And we in 2022 actually started focusing on these sales teams before ChatGPT came out, but we knew that pretty soon, AI would be able to do a lot of these different pieces of the job. I think, in approaching from first principles, we knew ahead of time that AI would be able to do a lot of these things. But I think approaching, starting working on this problem before ChatGPT came out, we did not come at the problem saying, "Hey, AI is now here. What can we do with it to, what problems can we solve?" We actually instead approach it more from the problem first, right? And saying, "Hey, there are all these sales reps that are, doing these things. AI will be able to do in the future. How do we build a solution around it?" It's one of the things that has led us to say, "Hey, we're building assistants, not agents," because for the sales use case, you can't automate end to end because buyers won't like that, right? You won't be able to deliver as much value. So I think the whole story is, how do you approach the problem from first principles and not just build AI for the sake of building AI, but actually to solve a real problem.
Yeah, and I'll add this because I have a background in technical sales, did it for 10 plus years, 15 plus years of my career, and working with a lot of pretty much every role within sales, right? From inside reps all the way to distinguished engineers and field CTOs and super technical conversations as well. And one of the biggest challenges I've always seen is the scaling problem of you get some really good reps that are really successful. And then it's like, well, how do I make more of them?
Yeah.
Right. And how do you take that process or how to take that information out of their head or exactly what they're doing and how they're doing it and why they're, getting better traction or getting better leads or closing more deals. And you can apply that to, again, I think it's really anytime you have I'll use the term, the tech stack with the human glue again, no matter what organization you're in, what really happens then is this concept of how do I clone those folks? How do I make more of them? How do I scale this? Like you mentioned, from, 1 or 2 good reps to 10 good reps to 100 good reps, or, and again, it goes across all kinds of different organizations. And so is this first of all, is there some typical first steps you take everyone through? Because if folks are now used to AI and maybe they don't want an AI agent, but they know they want an AI assistant, how do you get consensus and buy-in from all the various orgs in the companies, especially as CISO orgs get involved in anytime there's an outside vendor with AI and they want to do an audit or they want to talk more about it. And so what are the common hurdles that folks need to consider and what's the ideas of where things are successful?
Yeah, a couple of points in there, and keep me on track. But I think the first thing that you mentioned was that the best sales reps, you want to clone those, and I think it's actually in thinking about the sales tech stack, the fact that you want to, the best sales reps are meaningfully differentiated from the next best. This is actually an really important thing that we consider. Before I jump into the question of implementation and kind of cross-functional buy-in, first I want to mention one really important concept that we think about, and it's this question of value creation and value capture in the sales tech stack. I think if you think about the canonical examples of value creation and value capture, there's Wikipedia, which has created a ton of value but has not captured a lot of it because it's a nonprofit. And another example is early in tech, everyone thought that the CPU companies like Intel would be, the really big companies. But actually, CPUs became commoditized, and Microsoft, the operating system, ended up capturing the value. I think in the sales tech stack, there's a question, with LLMs and these powerful AI models, does the value accrue there? In the OpenAIs and Anthropics, or does it accrue in the CRM, like the Salesforces and the HubSpots? Does it accrue in the data layer, like a ZoomInfo or Apollo, or does it accrue actually in the end user facing application, the product that sales reps themselves are using on the day to day? And I think if you think about the different generations of the sales tech stack, like Salesforce and HubSpot, they've been able to create a lot of value, and they've also been able to capture it because once you use a Salesforce, you can't really switch. the next generation have not been able to capture value as much. The sales engagement, sales intelligence, sales data platforms, because you can kind of switch every other year, and it doesn't make a huge impact. I think the really interesting thing that you said about the best sales reps, you want to clone the best sales reps. They're meaningfully differentiated from the next best, and you can't switch, right? You're not switching off your best sales reps every year. And the reason is because they build a mental model of the sales process, and as they sell, they know better what to say and who to target, who's a good fit, and they're actually doing the work. And we believe that on that value creation, value capture trade-off, the products in the space that will be able to create the most value are the ones actually at the end user application, the one that reps use, all day, that multiplies their productivity, because that's actually where you get the feedback loops. And as you help them sell, you learn better what to say and who to target and who's a good fit. Does that make sense, Aaron?
No, it makes perfect sense. It does, absolutely. And because it's really interesting to me because I feel like, just like most other things in tech, there's always like a tech problem and there's a people problem, right? And how do you bring those together into an all-in-one solution that you're going to just reduce the friction of everything as much as you possibly can? And how do you go faster? And the other thing I would add too is I feel like there's certain parts of an organization where maybe the budget is more readily available, and certainly going after something like this, where it's much closer to the revenue certainly makes sense. But I'll add kind of a follow up to that then too is there common hurdles across an organization of not just tackling sales, but just this whole idea of like either going from no AI to maybe the first steps of GenAI, and then from GenAI to agentic or assistant-based AI. Is there some basic considerations or some universal principles that gets folks from one stage to the next stage?
Yeah. Honestly, though, I wouldn't approach it from like this perspective of, assistants versus agents versus like, how to use the AI. I would actually approach it instead from like, what is the problem to be solved? And what is the optimal solution for this type of problem? Like I was mentioning, sales, I think, is actually very different from a lot of other applications of AI. If you can, for customer support, if you can fully automate that, probably you should, because then you'll be able to deliver faster answers, more accurate answers to customers, and deliver a better customer experience. Whereas in sales, you can't fully automate that because buyers will, get tired of trying to, of buying from AI. I think in our case, you were mentioning how do you get people on board, and how do you actually break through the noise? I think there's obviously a lot of noise, people selling different AI solutions. We do a trial in basically every sales process, and we win 70% of these trials and convert them to customers. And the reason is because we can repeatedly show that in the period of a couple of weeks, we will double the amount of sales pipeline that one rep can generate. So we will double a team's productivity. And when you can do that, it's pretty easy to make the case across a number of teams because it is so closely tied to revenue, and more pipeline never hurt anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes perfect sense. And I think that's actually a great place to close this out for today, Dan. One final question. If anyone out there is interested, what's the best way for them to get started and to learn more?
Yeah. So if you're interested in joining Nooks, we're hiring across the board. You can visit our site and our careers page, but hiring across, engineering and product as well as go-to-market. If you're interested in using Nooks for your team to generate more pipeline, you can book a demo on our site or reach out on LinkedIn and send me a message.
Fantastic. All right. Well, Dan, thank you very much for your time. And for everyone out there listening, thank you very much for your time as well. If you enjoy the podcast, Please tell a friend. Please leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts if you're able to do so. And of course, as always, if you have feedback, show@thecloudcast.net. On behalf of Brian, who wasn't able to make it this week, and myself, thank you very much for listening, and we will talk to everyone next week.
Thank you for listening to The Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more shows, show notes, videos, and everything social media.